Welcome to Curated Clean, the podcast,
where we get our hands dirty so you don't have to.
We are your curators and your hosts. My name is Mike.
I'm Mandy.
And I'm Whitney.
Welcome to the show today. Today we're going to talk about this episode, more of a serious note. So trigger warning right out the gate. We're going to be talking about medical files, medical directives, calling 911, medical emergency kind of things, how to coordinate for that and prepare for those things. We hope and pray that you never have to use any of these things. But if you ever would, this will help you. But if you are triggered by any of this, we may have some, we won't get into graphic detail, but we may discuss times that we've had to call 911 and some things like that. So if you are triggered by that, just pass on this one and go binge one of the originals.
And you know what we'll do is on our social media for you, we'll have this just written out. Main points just written out for you, so you don't have to listen and maybe be triggered by that. We have all been in some pretty serious situations, unfortunately. But, you know, I wish someone would have talked me through these things. And maybe I wouldn't have taken it seriously because I wouldn't have thought that it was really going to be that big of a deal.
Right.
Before I had to actually face it myself.
Right.
So, you know, stick around with us. This is one of our more somber topics. But hopefully maybe we can get you to a place where you won't feel as anxious and nervous if you're in this situation.
And even though it is a little bit more of a touchy subject, we always want you to feel empowered. That's the goal of Curated Clean, is for you to feel empowered in your life. And this is one of those situations where you can use this in not just in this kind of, you know, calling 911 or, you know, going to a hospital or something like that. You could use this to assert yourself in other ways too. Really anytime, you know, I mean, we've all experienced panic attacks, you know, before and that kind of stuff. We'll just be honest. And so maybe you can implement some of these ideas, you know, and coping skills for that. So we have this kind of broken up into 3 parts where we want to talk about, we always talk about being your own and your best medical advocate. And part of medical advocacy for yourself is creating medical files. So we want to talk about that first, what that looks like, how you build that. The second thing we want to talk about is actually like what occur if you've never called 911 before for a medical emergency. We're going to kind of talk you through what that sounds like and what that looks like and some of our experiences that we've had as far as like it doesn't go as well in your, you know, as it's happening as you think it's going to go in your mind. And then lastly, we're going to give you just some tips and tricks that we found. Some app. Whitney's going to talk about an app that she uses. I'm going to talk about some jewelry stores that we like for medical tags and that kind of stuff. And so I think that's how we're going to work today. And so you are welcome to, you know, if you just want to listen to the very first part, you can always shut it off after that. We'll kind of let you know as we move to different subjects, so that way, you know, you can buzz in and out if you'd like.
If there's something,
but we're really trying to be respectful of everybody's experiences because they are very hard. Medical emergencies are not fun. They can be very, very scary. They can be very serious. Not everybody survives a medical emergency. And so we just want to help you be as prepared as possible. Once again, we literally do hope and pray that you never have to do this. But if you would, here's how we would like to start. So emergency files or medical files. What does that look like for each of us?
Well, and I think people think that this is something that only someone who has like some serious condition. But this is like, you could have an accident, or your child could have an accident. It's just good to have this information, because what I've learned in these situations is you're not thinking super clearly. You're anxious, you're pumped full of adrenaline, and you might not even remember your own name or birth date. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
Easy things that you know, like your birthday, or someone's name. You're calling for the person who's having the emergency and you're blanking on their name or your address.
And sometimes that person is not capable, the person in distress is not capable of giving you, you know, middle names or birth dates, addresses of where you're at. I mean, I know growing up when I did the babysitter thing, you know, you got babysitter certified. One of the things that we always like would take was like an emergency contact list. And it kind of got to be a joke for me. Like, oh, look, they have their emergency list on the fridge. But here's the deal. I never had an emergency while I was there. Thank you, God. But the reality would be is I didn't know all these kids, you know, middle names, or if they have different last names from their parents or something like that. You know, we have a lot of blended families in this day and age. And so, you know, you want to know what name is going to be on their insurance card, what kind of insurance they have. If they have, well, we'd rather go to this hospital than that hospital locally. These are all things that can be part of your medical file. So
So
emergency medical file and your medical file in general.
So number one, like every person, every single member of the family should have their own.
Yes.
You know, every single person should have their own. And I think, you know, literally basics, just basics, their date of birth.
Yep.
Their full name.
Full name.
Yes.
You know, you don't think about things like that in the moment because you're like, well, of course I know their name. Of course I know their date of birth.
If you're under
I have called
right.
for my own children before and I have completely blanked because my son was having a terrible asthma attack. I could not remember his date of birth. I could not get his oxygen up and he was turning blue in front of my eyes and I just couldn't think straight.
Right.
I should have had this in front of my face.
And then you're just reading off of a cue card, essentially.
Exactly.
They almost write it out like a script. It may sound keep it written out.
Yep.
Like we said, we never want you to have to use it. But then if you do, you've got it and you can be a little more calm and know what you're going to have to say. You've already gotten it written out. You can just kind of read it off like a checklist.
Right.
Probably not in this calm of a tone. But,
so name, start out with just name, birth date, address, even if it's your own home address or whatever, address.
Yep.
Another thing to note is other emergency contacts, like if you're a babysitter or you're an aunt or uncle or something, and you need to know parents' names too, because children, when they go in, often they're under their parents' insurance, and so they need to know their parents' name as well. That's another thing. You don't think you'd ever go blank on your family member's name.
You never know.
You never know. One time I fed my birthday to a 911 operator when I was trying to give the birthday of another family member, and there was some confusion because they're like, you know, when they got there, they're like, well, this doesn't match up with like our records, you know, quote unquote. And I'm like, ooh, I gave you my birthday. I'm so sorry, because that was my habit in the moment, and I was overwhelmed.
Yeah,
I was very overwhelmed.
Social security numbers also.
If you feel comfortable doing that, if you don't,
some people don't.
But if you feel comfortable doing that, yes.
Right.
Medications, current list of medications, and that includes some supplementation. There are some supplements, you'll know this if you take these supplements, if sometimes they can react with like blood thinners or clotting medications. Those need to be listed. Just something to think about. Now, like I said, if you're going to take a supplement like that, you'll know what interactions those have, but do that when you have a clear mind and write that down.
Yes.
And also make sure you list any allergies and or medication allergies as well.
Yes. Very important.
Medications.
Any allergies you might have to pharmaceuticals is a really, really big deal, because they might in the moment not realize that and try to administer something thinking they're helping you and actually harm you.
Right. Right. If you've been a recipient of blood transfusions before, a lot of times that's important, or major history stuff, like you're calling for a specific medical emergency and you need to articulate that this person has had blunt force trauma or a total brain injury, a TBI or something in the past. Those are really important things. If they have, a bulging disc or a heart condition, a respiratory, diabetes, things like that. Keywords that are part of their medical history that are important. All those big things need to be in there. Previous conditions and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Important. And if they're willing to get blood product, if you are for some reason like you're an odd blood type, I mean, they always type before they give blood, and that wouldn't happen on an ambulance ride. No. But anything that you can prepare them for ahead of time, because sometimes it used to be like years ago, I hopped in the front of the ambulance before. Now it's not like that. No. It's really hard to get in on the ambulance. You usually follow. You could get separated. They're not going to wait for the car following them.
This is something you could hand to them.
Yes.
And also, I mean, like if you have religious preferences, I mean, like certain religions, you're not allowed to take blood product or certain pharmaceuticals. That needs to be like in your medical directives so that they know. I was just
going to say, make sure you have medical directives that you can give them a copy, and make sure anybody who's on your medical directives also has a copy of those as well.
Yep. Of what you'd like done.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Did we say copies of insurance cards too?
Yep.
Any insurance information, even if you don't have the policy number, at least the name, something along those lines, or even if it's just your insurance rep or something to where if they need to get insurance, like maybe they need to do a big scan or something, there's a way for them to contact somebody to get the okay to move forward on it. So they're not delaying. The point of all this is to get as much information as possible, as quickly as possible, across to whoever needs it, so that you can continuously get care without stalls in the care.
Exactly. You want to get your loved one, or maybe even yourself, the care that you need as quickly as possible, because in many, many medical emergencies, time is of the essence. treatments.
Yes.
As we know.
Yes.
So make sure you've got your doctors and specialists in there.
Yes. Their phone numbers, their fax numbers, your pharmacy that you use.
Yes, your pharmacy is
anything like that. Because sometimes we've had it in the past where an ambulance has come, everything gets stabilized. You don't have to go to the hospital, but they want you to follow up with your doctor. And, and then, and this sounds, once again, this sounds idiotic. Like you think, oh, I'd remember these things. But sometimes, if it's during the day and you end up calling your doctor's office, they're going to go, okay, and what pharmacy do you use? Sometimes that doesn't come to your mind when you're coming down off of, an adrenaline rush, or even you're tired. What if you've been up all night with this person in this medical emergency? So just things to remember, that you can't always trust yourself in these moments, and you need to help yourself out. Once again, we hope you never have to do this, but if you do, when you get your medical records, make sure that includes all of your scans, any previous blood work, results, anything like that. If you leave a doctor's office, make sure that you transfer that to your new doctor, or you get copies yourself. I like to get copies myself, make my own copies, and then drop copies off at my new doctor's office.
You can request it.
Yeah, we'll give you copies if you just send in a request.
Now, I thought medical records were my property, and I learned just recently from a practitioner that when they make your medical record, because they're the ones making the record, they actually own that medical record. Okay. But it is their obligation. It's kind of, it's a given that if you request it, they have to give you copies. Now, I have had one doctor be a booger, I'm not going to lie, and they didn't want to release my records to me. And I said, no, I want my records. And they charged me like 35 cents a sheet, a piece of paper. And I didn't care. I mean, you have to decide, is it worth it to have those copies or not? And for me, it was worth it to have the copies.
I know someone who took a ream of paper in and just said, here's a ream of paper. I want my records.
I want my records.
And you do have the right to request that. I'm just going to throw
that
out, because in the past, I didn't know I had that right. And when I called my doctor to get them, they told me I wasn't allowed to have copies. And then when I called again down the road to get them, they said, oh, well, it's been past this. We've shredded those now. So I never got a copy, and they're gone. I mean, I have no record of that. So you do have the right to request that. You usually have to sign a release form, and or maybe some places make you pay a fee, but you do have the right to request that.
And I believe you can also request digital records now. I don't know if there's something extra you have to sign off on saying that it's going to come through email, and that's obviously able to be hacked, and I don't know how that all falls with HIPAA, but I do believe you can also get them either burned onto a CD or something like that. Once again, just as far as the medical advocacy for yourself part, having a very clear and concise and full history of everything and scans and everything is always good to have for any time you go to the doctor, because sometimes you forget dates, like when did I have that surgery and things like that, and those are important to know and remember. And that also helps you if you get established with a new doctor too. This doesn't have to just be for just a medical emergency. It can also be just for when you transfer doctors and all that stuff.
Maybe you get referred on to a specialist, they've never seen you before. This is just good information to have. I also want to encourage you to have this information in a place where you can easily grab it. You could put it on like your refrigerator. To some people, that's pretty triggering to look at that every day and just constantly be thinking, oh my gosh, something could go wrong. So maybe don't do that to yourself. I know for me, I'm really trying to practice joy. I have 2 kiddos who have some extra needs, and I've had to call 911 more times than I would ever wish on anyone for them, and I don't want to look at that on my refrigerator every day. But if you have a drawer in your kitchen or wherever it's most centralized in your house where you can grab it really easily, have your information right there. Don't put this in a safe somewhere. I mean, maybe you could have a copy there, but this needs to be readily available for you. Okay.
Everybody in the house needs to know where that's at as well, because it may not be only you making the phone call.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we said, I hope you don't have to use it, but make sure everybody knows.
And you can always make shortened versions of this. I mean, we're talking about what a 911 operator is going to ask of you. They're not going to be asking for social security number and all that kind of stuff.
No, they're not.
That is all from when medics show up and that kind of stuff. They're going to be the ones asking about insurance and that kind of stuff. The ambulance or the 911 operator is going to be the one helping you get through. At one point, I won't lie, I called for a family member, and I at one point was going to need to start CPR if the medics didn't arrive soon. And in that split moment, this is a person I have been trained on how to do CPR and resuscitation. I could not remember. I knew that the person was on a bed and they needed to be on a hard surface, and I knew I couldn't physically move them. And the 911 operator asked, do you know how to do CPR? And I said, yes, I do, but I can't remember right now. And she goes, that's okay. I can walk you through it. So I will say, we've never had a 911 operator that wasn't amazing, that wasn't very, very calm. If there's any 911 operators out there or medics or emergency staff, thank you for your job.
Yes, thank you.
If you ever see one around, thank them for the job they do. They come when you're saying they're waiting for an ambulance to come and you're waiting to hear those sirens and you're just like, please just hold on until the medics can get here because you can't put a person in a car and drive them down the road.
Right.
They are life-saving. They are so important. And so try to encourage them, tell them thank you. We always try to follow up as best we can with ours and tell them thank you. Sadly, a few of them have been to our place so often they remember us. But I'm so grateful for them. And man, we've run into some of them later that have literally shed tears with us, knowing that everything turned out okay. Yeah. These people care about their jobs. You can get some bad ones, but in general, 99% of the people we've encountered are people who really want to help and they just, their hearts are in their jobs.
I don't think that you would go into this if you didn't care about helping people and you didn't care about people,
Yep. So
anyway,
we're grateful for them. Okay. So that's what everything should be in your medical file.
But before we jump onto that, just having the copies where you can easily access them.
Yep.
But also I encourage you to put it like maybe a copy in your car, in your glove box. If you've got kiddos, in your purse, wallet, just consolidate it down and make it maybe you should even laminate it. You know?
A kid who needs like an EpiPen or something or has severe food allergies or something like that, they go to soccer practice, anything like stick it in their bag. This is, give people as much information as possible because you never
tape it to a car seat.
Tape it to a car seat. That's a great one too. Tape it to the inside of your car.
Accident. I have a friend or an acquaintance that I know of, and she has a nonverbal autistic son, and she actually had a medical emergency while she was driving and she was incapacitated and her son nonverbal was in the back seat. Now, can you imagine how terrifying it must have been for him, but also for any medical, professionals coming to help them, not knowing how to help him. But she actually, I believe, had something there that said he was nonverbal, autistic, and, he might do this or this. Please don't startle him, whatever. And they were able to work with him. But they would not have known that if she had not had the foresight to have that right there on his car seat.
Right. It's great information. So if you have special needs kids like that, anything like, let's say they've had trauma in the past and loud noises or lights, scare them. The light, if they have an epileptic disorder, and even the lights of the siren, the siren lights and all that kind of stuff, the strobing lights and stuff would bother them. Those are all things that are really good to have taped or connected to their car seats or inside your car. So just things to be aware of there. Okay, I think we covered everything on the medical file.
Right.
Okay, so now, God forbid, you have to call 911. The first thing that we want to encourage you with is they're professionals at what they do. Take a deep breath and try to get your mind straight as the phone is ringing. So as the phone's ringing, take a deep breath, say, you can do this. Okay, what do I need? They're going to ask me questions. I need to answer them as clearly and concisely as I possibly can. The more time you take up, the more time it takes them to release an ambulance to get going to find you.
Right.
So make sure you know the address of where you're going. Once again, that medical file, pulling out that little piece of paper works great because it's the script as they do it. So you calm down, stay close to the person that is needing assistance because
if you can, maybe put your phone on speaker.
Yes.
You can talk them through that, but then stay with the person that's needing the help. And that way you're not just walking off and leaving them.
And make sure they're stable.
Yes.
As best as you can. As best as you can. I realize you might not be a medical professional. I mean, I'm not, but when I've had to in the past call, I always try to make sure that I can afford the time to leave them, and that they are okay. Especially if you have anyone else in the house who can help, not
a
children,
neighbor
obviously,
or
someone you can call on. If you're alone, yes, a neighbor or somebody. If there is someone else in the house who can come and be with the person while you make the phone call, or you stay with the person and tell them how to to make the phone call.
Right.
Just so the person is stable, because you would never want to miss an opportunity, like Mike was saying, if the person would need, resuscitation or something,
or
that can change. Yeah, that can change. And just
fall off of something or fall out of something, or you want to make sure that you get them in a safe place and make sure they're not going to hurt themselves in order to make that phone call. And I know that sounds, once again, like a dumb moment, but when you are panicking and you're trying to remain calm, simple things like that fall by the wayside.
They do.
You know, you may forget that you've got stuff on the stove and it's, you know, boiling over and you don't want it to catch on fire while you're doing, I mean, very simple things. So if you can always try to get help if you can, as far as like right in the general vicinity of where you're at before you make a phone call.
Another thing to remember also, so I'm going to butt in, when you're making the call, if the call would drop or if something gets hung up, 911 will always call you back.
Yes.
So don't try to keep calling them. They will call you back.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind too if something like that would happen.
Yep.
Yes. And creating things I never thought of before I had to do this. Creating a clear pathway to the person. So, you know, maybe they're in like a back bedroom or they're in a living room and you guys have been playing games and there's like Twister on the floor. I mean, just some random thing.
Right.
Pick everything up and get it out of the way. They're often going to bring a stretcher in.
Yep.
And probably more than one EMT.
Yes. And more than one medical professional will be there and they're going to need to get through what the building, the house, apartment complex. If you can think, oh no, you know, I've got this in the way, or so-and-so left their bike by the door, go move whatever you can, get everything as cleared and ready for them as possible.
They don't care what your house looks like.
No.
So throw the shoes out of the way, get the rugs out of the way. These are things, if there's a stairwell, get as much out of the stairwell as possible. You know, they're going to pick, when they get there, they're going to assess the situation and pick a stretcher or whatever they need to be able to do it. And so you want to make sure that that is such a good point. You cannot forget that. Make sure you, if you have doors, open the doors as much as you can. Another thing is, and the 911 operator will remind you of this, get children and pets as far out of the way as you can. Any or other adults. Honestly, if you have to go turn TV on in the other room and plunk kids down and lock the, you know, not lock them in there, but, you know, put a pet in, shut the door. You don't want a medic coming in and then your cat gets outside and the dog is biting the leg of the medic. You don't want that.
That's the last thing you need.
You want everything stress. as clear and as
no impedance at all.
Right.
And also, like, I mean, my cats completely stress out when anyone new comes in, let alone, you know, they can feel the tension and the stress. It's just easier to take them. I just put them in the laundry room, shut the door. They don't have to deal with it. You know, if I've, in the past, you know, this past few months, I've had to call 911 several times. For varying reasons. And my other kiddos, I always try to call maybe one of you two or someone and just see, like, can you just come sit with the other kids while we get this taken care of?
Usually I run up and try to get everybody into the other room. The other thing to remember is that it's traumatic for you and traumatic for the person that it's happening to. It's also traumatic for the onlookers in the family. You know, Mandy's had to call for, you know, let's say one of her children, and then the other ones tend to just stare and watch and go, something is wrong and I am terrified. And so, you know, if you are that person that gets called on, just remind everybody it's all going to be okay. We need to get out of everybody's way. Let's go put TV on. Let's listen to music. Let's do something in the other room. Let's get as far away. I've even taken them out of the house. I've even put them in my car and we just drove to my house just to get them out of the way. You do whatever you need to do to get through the situation. You can always figure out on the backside of that, you know, what to do later. So another last thing on that, Mandy tended to have all of the medications sitting out. And then being able to articulate, we've already had this dose for the day.
Yes.
That's another important thing because you don't want them to go, they're going to say, if this is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, at 5 o'clock, this person needs a dose. They need to have that written down in the chart so that they know at 5 o'clock, this person needs this dose of whatever it is. Most likely they will not take those with them unless it's some specialized thing. I know for some children, because it's such small doses and stuff, sometimes they will take it if they don't have a pediatric wing. But in general, they'll have that medication to be able to give to that person.
I had my baby's like emergency meds out and I was able to say I gave him this dose of this. He had already had his regular medication in the morning and they were able to write that down really quickly, you know. I would also say be prepared quickly to be able to go with the person. Either to follow or to jump in. You know, grab your purse quickly.
Phone charger.
If someone is staying with the person having the emergency, take the time, whoever, decide in that moment quickly who is going to go. Grab your shoes, grab something, grab glasses if you wear contacts. You know, I mean, I even have like a little sort of bug out bag and it's got like an extra toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, just basic things in it, like a cardigan, sweater.
You can go to a regular store and get travel size things. Get a travel size toothbrush that's wrapped in plastic and a little thing. I mean, literally something where if you have to go to the hospital, you just throw it away on your way out and you're done.
Exactly.
They're not that expensive. Have a bug out bag. That's really smart for really anything in this day and age. Because if, I don't know, even a storm comes in or a tornado or something, you can always grab something like that and, move. So that's a very good point to have. Bug out bags are great. Make sure that you at least take something. If you can grab a water bottle too or anything like that, that's always fantastic. Or a snack. But at the end of the day, that's not emergent, but definitely making sure if you have contacts or you need glasses, a phone charger, if you have those those banks, those charging banks near the door, grab one of those on your way out. Those are always smart to have. So
and you guys were going to talk about quickly before, because we're running out of time, but I wanted you guys to be able to talk about the medical jewelry and tags and things like that.
Well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to throw out, because something that everybody pretty much carries with them all the time now is their phone. And for me, I do have a medical tag to keep in my purse, but I actually found a couple of apps. If you go on the app store and just type in emergency app, there are hundreds of them. The specific one that I chose it because it allowed me to put in multiple contacts. So I could put both of you on there, and I also put our dad on there. He lives out of state, but he does have access to all of my medical records and would have access to scans and other things that I need. The one I picked, you can put in, I've put everything, all the medication I'm on and the dosages.
Which one did you pick?
Actually, I'm just going to pull my phone up. I believe it's just called ICE Emergency App.
Now, if you don't know this,
like a little heart with like a heartbeat through it, and it's a little red square.
ICE is actually called in case of emergency. I never knew that. Honestly, my husband's brother-in-law is a medic, and he was like, "Oh, do you have ICE in your phone?" I was like, "Who is ICE?" And he's like, "In case of emergency." And I went, "Oh, I didn't know that." So just for any of you out there who are like me and didn't know that, that's what ICE means.
That, and also something to think about that I have now done. And my friend told me a while back to do this, and when I put in Dad and then his last name and then in parentheses his first name. That way, if somebody's going to go through, not somebody's going to go through your phone, but if a medic's scrolling through quickly trying to find like mom or dad or sister, I put that in there so that way they saw their first name, but they know, okay, this is a family member, I can call them. But that app that I did pick, I picked it because you can put in multiple contacts, but also it allowed me to put in all of my medication, all my past history for things like I have a history of this, and I actually personally have a history of seizures, so I could put that in there. Put down my emergency medication of what's used.
Your allergies.
And
medication allergies.
It just allowed me to put a lot of information in. Now, obviously, you don't have to put all of that in there. I just did it because I know in the past I've had situations and they need all that information because I also have some other medical issues that have been that have happened in the past. So I just try to keep that on. It's just on my front page. So if anybody would get it and open my phone, it's right there. They can just hit the little heart button that says ICE Emergency and you pull it up.
And even a family member, there are sometimes different people in my family have different allergies to medications, and sometimes they get those wrong. I'm like, oh no, it's not that person who's allergic to penicillin, it's that person. And some people are allergic to penicillin in different ways. There's different names and different name brands and that kind of stuff. So having that information is easy also if we have to pick up your phone.
So ultimately, just on the apps, there's, like I said, there's hundreds. I happened to pick this one just because it was one that someone had recommended, but there are literally hundreds. If you go into your app store, whatever, Android, Apple phone, whatever, you go into however you purchase it through your phone. And these are free. Most of these emergency apps, all of them I've seen are free, obviously, because it's just there for an emergency. But there's hundreds. So just pick the one that works for you.
Yeah.
Whatever information you need. I happen to need a lot of information in mine, so that's why I chose that one, but there are hundreds.
Yep.
Now, do you want to touch on the medical, like jewelry or tags or whatever that you had? Because I know you have a couple companies that you recommended.
Lauren's Hope Medical ID. They do a ton of them, and they always run sales. But they have such a wide range. You can get anything from kids up to adults. Like kids with kind of like the more stretchy sport band ones. They don't just have the plain old school dog tag IDs. I actually had one a while back that was, I don't wear it anymore, but you could buy the plate with your engraving and then switch out the bracelet strand for whatever you wanted. So I had that one for a long time.
You can get to go more like fashion jewelry.
Nicer, you just want to be sporty or casual.
Yeah.
So they have a ton of options. They also have ones now that you can, they come with a USB drive. So if you have scans or if you have any kind of medical records you want to put on there, you put that in and it you just stick it and all of it's loaded onto there. I mean, you have to load it onto there, but
and it has the little emergency medical, you know, what a medical tag has on that little red and the cross with the medical emergency logo. I can't remember the Greek
name, but yes.
Another store that I've used in the past that has medical jewelry is called Sticky J. It's literally like sticky, STICKY, and then just the letter J. They have good sales. Yes. They have good pricing and stuff. They have a lot of clearance items too. They have a lot of different things. They have, Whitney's has a tag on her purse. Yeah, like there are like wallet tags. Yeah. There's all sorts of things that you can customize. Like I said, for children, there's ones you can attach to shoes. You can, lanyards and necklaces, you know, bracelets. There's all sorts of stuff. They even have fun ones that say like, I have peanut allergies, and, you know, for your kid to wear to school.
They have a lot of options now, which is great.
Tons. So don't let that be an excuse for you not to wear a medical tag if you need it, because they can fit a lot of information. They look really nice. They don't look as medical taggy as they used to.
Exactly.
But, you know, those are other things that they look for too. The last thing I want to talk about was something that we saw just recently, like maybe a couple weeks ago. Whitney and I were driving and we saw something, and it said, it was a decal in the car in front of us, and it said, child with epilepsy on board may stop suddenly. And I thought, wow, that's a really good idea. So if you have a sign maker in your local area, or if you have a Cricket or something, I mean, or you know somebody who has a Cricket, a decal like that might be helpful too, that, you know, this vehicle may be pulling over for medical emergencies and may stop suddenly. And I thought that was really nice, because then that lets the other drivers around know, oh, there's a reason why they're pulling over.
Right.
They may even be able to help as well. You know, like, do you need us to call 911? Yes, I do, as they're, you know, working with somebody.
Able to, if you're following them, you could throw on your flashers too and make sure.
Right, and help block traffic and all that stuff. So that's another way just to get information. I think the thing that we want to wrap this up with is just make sure that you have all the information you need, as much as you can, readily available.
Right.
So that should you ever need it, we hope that you don't. But if you do, that way your mind can be clear, and you kind of take some of that pressure off. Like you go, oh, I can calm down because I already know what I'm doing, and here's my little piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I hope you never have to use this ever, ever. But if you do, I would hope and pray that we've given you information that will help you, so you don't feel panicked. You know you can do this. Yep. You can get your loved one or yourself the medical attention that you need as quickly as possible, and it's going to be fine. I want to stress that too. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be just fine.
Yep. And consider taking you know, resuscitation course or CPR class or anything like that. If you have
anything that's going to make you feel more comfortable.
I've gone to, when we had our first baby, we went to an infant class on choking and resuscitation, all that kind of stuff. Those things do change, even if you watch a YouTube video. You know, there's nothing wrong with educating yourself. You never know when you can help yourself, your loved one, or a stranger. You never know. Exactly. So we hope that we've given you some information to consider and ponder, not to scare you, but to prepare you.
Exactly.
We always want to thank you for spending time with us. We know your time is precious, and we appreciate you giving it to us. So we always end with,
be healthy,
be well,
and God bless you.
If you like listening to this podcast, stop by curatedclean.com, where you'll find links to all the different ways you can tune in each week, along with details from each episode. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter for further information on each topic we cover. For video versions of each episode, check us out on YouTube and Facebook. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, where you can find glimpses of all things behind the scenes.